In the history of American motorsports, there are few moments quite as thunderous as when Dodge decided in 1969 that it had enough of losing. This wasn't a polite disagreement with results or a boardroom spat about market share. No, this was Chrysler engineers dragging an entire car back to the drawing board with a vengeance that could have split tectonic plates. The result was not just a car, but an engineering weapon, the Dodge Charger Daytona. It wasn't just faster than everything else in Nascar. It was so fast they had to change the rules in order to stop it. And yes, this thing would go over 200 miles per hour in 1969. With a boot, you could still load a set of golf clubs into. So let me tell you all about it. You see, by 1968, Dodge had already done what many American manufacturers did best. They built something enormous with lots of cubic inches and even more horsepower, then hurled it at the racetrack and hope it stuck. Trouble was, Ford was busy doing the same, only with a little more finesse. The Torino Talladega was slippery, through the air, and devastatingly quick, while Dodge's existing Charger was bulky and upright. It was more like a brick than a bullet. It didn't help when Richard Petty, the undisputed king of NASCAR, left Plymouth and joined Ford because Chrysler's B-body machines just weren't cutting it anymore. So Dodge did what no American carmaker had really dared before. It went full nerd. They took the Charger back to the wind tunnel and did something previously reserved for European prototypes and moon rockets. They made aerodynamics a priority. So let's start with the nose. The Charger Daytona's front end was a bolt-on steel cone, extending the overall length by nearly 18 inches. Gone was the traditional upright grille, and in came a sharply tapered nose cone with pop-up headlights. A first for NASCAR, and a design so slippery it reduced the drag coefficient drastically. It was built not to look good, but to slice the air like a hatchet through wood. At the back, however, came the real moment of craziness. A massive 23-inch tall stabilizer wing, perched ridiculously high above the rear deck. This wasn't designed for aesthetics, though ironically it would become one of the most iconic visuals in all of American car culture. Some said it was that tall so the boot could still open, but in reality that wing was mounted exactly where it would work, in clean, undisturbed airflow, generating real downforce over the real wheels at 180 miles per hour. Wind tunnel tests confirmed it. It made the car stick like sap to a tree trunk. The rear window, formerly a recessed design beloved by stylists, was flush-mounted with a fastback insert to help the air slide down the tail without creating turbulent vortices. Brake cooling was improved by fender-mounted scoops, and stainless steel A-pillar covers smoothed the flow along the windscreen edges. The entire package had been tested and tweaked by engineers obsessed with laminar airflow. It was quite simply the most aerodynamic production car America had ever seen. But a car that looks like a missile only works if it has power like one, so Dodge gave it the biggest sticks in the armory. Standard cars came with a 440 cubic inch Magnum V8, a 7.2-liter unit chucking out 375 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque. That was then paired to an A727 torque flight automatic transmission and sent to the rear wheels through a stout 8 3/4 rear end with a 3.3 gear ratio. But for those who wanted to absolutely terrify themselves, there was the 426 Hemi, 7 liters, 425 horsepower, 490 pound-feet of torque, hemispherical combustion chambers, solid lifters, forged internals, dual 4-barrel Carter AFB carbs. This was an engine designed to run flat out all day. Paired with a 4-speed A833 manual, the Hemi Daytona was a legitimate 200 mile per hour capable car in 1969, and you could register it for road use. Underneath, the Daytona rode on a heavy-duty suspension setup borrowed from the Charger RT. leaf springs at the back, torsion bars at the front, and dampers that barely acknowledged the existence of body roll. Brakes were upgraded to match the added speed, with front discs and massive rear drums. But despite all of this hardware, Dodge had to build at least 500 road cars to homologate the Daytona for Nascar. In total, 503 were made for the US market, with an additional 40 cars for Canada. Just 70 got the Hemi engine, which today makes them among the most valuable pieces of muscle car history you can find. But let's talk a bit more about Nascar. I mean, that's the whole reason we got the car. So, on September 14, 1969, at Talladega Superspeedway, the Dodge Charger Daytona made its competition debut, and it immediately won. Richard Brickhouse took the win, though it's worth mentioning that many top drivers boycotted that race due to safety concerns with the track surface. Regardless, the Daytona's potential was obvious. Then came the 1970 season. Bobby Isaac, driving the bright red number 71 K&K Insurance Daytona, went on a rampage. 11 wins, 13 pole positions, 38 top 10 finishes. He didn't just win races, he shattered records. His qualifying lap at Talladega was clocked at 199.658 miles per hour. That was the fastest speed in NASCAR history at the time. But the real history maker was Buddy Baker. You see, in March 1970, Baker became the first man to break the 200 mile per hour barrier on a closed circuit, lapping Talladega in a Charger Daytona at a staggering 200.447 miles per hour. And this wasn't a one-off. Chrysler's engineers later ran the Daytona up to 235 miles per hour on their proving grounds, which is an insane number for any car, let alone one back in the early 70s. It was here that the Daytona earned its nickname, the Winged Warrior. But predictably, the competition and the sanctioning body weren't thrilled by the idea of a factory-built car casually lapping at aircraft speeds. Ford had their own contender in the Torino Talladega, and Plymouth would later field the Superbird, which was essentially a Daytona in different clothes, to lure Richard Petty back into the fold. But the writing was on the wall. For the 1971 season, NASCAR introduced a rule limiting aero-bodied cars to engines no larger than 305 cubic inches. In short, you could keep the wing, but only if you cut your power by nearly half. Chrysler sensibly declined, and that was the end of the Daytona and its short-lived aerodynamic dynasty. But the damage had already been done. The Daytona had proved that aerodynamics mattered. It had proved that engineering, not just brute force, could dominate the ovals, and it had set records that would stand for years. But despite its achievements, the Charger Daytona wasn't an easy sell in 1969. It was expensive, looked borderline ridiculous to the average buyer, and dealers often struggled to shift them off the lot. Some were converted back to standard Chargers just to get them sold. Today, of course, that sounds laughable. Hemi Daytonas routinely command seven-figure sums at auction, and even 440-powered models can fetch over $300,000. The very car Buddy Baker drove during his 200-mile-per-hour lap was offered for sale at Meckham with an asking price nearing $1 million. But to end this video off, the Dodge Charger Daytona wasn't just a muscle car. It wasn't even just a racing car. It was the moment Detroit realized that going fast meant more than shoving more cubes under the bonnet. It brought wind tunnels and drag coefficients into the limelight. It made winged downforce a thing of science rather than guesswork, and it reached the top speed of over 200 miles per hour. A speed that no one else in stock car racing had dared to touch. In the muscle car wars of the late 1960s, the Daytona wasn't just a combatant, it was a supersonic cruise missile with number plates, and it changed everything. But at the end of this video, please let me know what you guys think of the story of the Dodge Charger Daytona. I think it's really cool. I do think this is not the best looking car ever built. The wing looks silly. I understand the aerodynamics and everything was there for a reason, but that does not make the car look cool in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you guys did like this video, you'll most probably enjoy most of my other stuff. So just go through my channel, see if there's something else I like. I'll check you guys in the next one. Cheers, eh?